All right. Well, you opened up something that I'm super curious about. How did you, say both professionally and personally, how did you survive the pandemic? Like, how did you go with over 2 years, I would imagine, of just not making money? How did you keep the business going? But also, how did you keep going? Because you clearly care about what you do. You love it. You're invested in it. So that side of it is not there. Plus, you play in bands, which I know is important to you, and you weren't able to do that. So both professionally, how did Crawlspace get through, and how did you get through?
Crawlspace got through, um, getting grants, um, learning a lot about local politics. To get grants and stuff like that. And I started getting side hustle jobs where um, I started doing a lot of analog to digital conversion for record labels and for people. I spent a little bit of money. I always had money put aside. Did not Wasn't expecting a pandemic, but I had money put aside. Like I was like, hey, for the next 6 months, everything's going to be fine, but I got to find a side hustle. So I started doing analog to digital conversion for some labels and bands. Like they would send me cassettes of live recordings, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna put this out." So I would transfer it from a cassette to the digital to be sent to the mastering guy. And then there was a few labels that because I don't have many vices, but one of my big vices is my vinyl collection and spending an excessive amount of money on things like on audiophile stuff. And I happened to have a really expensive turntable and an expensive cartridge on it. So I started with some of these labels. They were like, hey, we're going to reissue this band's record and the master tapes don't exist. We're going to have to source it from vinyl. So either they would or I would help them find a mint copy of it. I would take it from vinyl, take the analog signal, transfer it to digital files, send it to the mastering guy. And there's a couple releases out there that honestly, the taken from vinyl, we made it sound exactly, if not better, like a clean vinyl copy. You wouldn't even notice, even to the point where some of the bands had told after the mastering got done, we're like, this is what it sounded like when we were in the mixing desk. It's never sounded this good. And when the record came out, I was so upset that it sounded muted and muffled. And this reminds me exactly what it sounded like. I was like, cool, awesome. So I was doing some of that, but it was a lot of like, buckling down, getting rid of things like, oh, no satellite radio, getting rid of the cable channels, getting rid of this and buckling down and eating a lot of, ramen and pasta and beans. But got through, was never late, was never late with the bills, never late. I actually ended up during the pandemic, since I wasn't spending a lot of money, I got caught up. I paid off a lot of bills. Um, but a lot of the time too was worrying, like, are we going to have live music again? Are we, like, talking with the bands that I work with, just saying, how you doing, man? Like checking in with each other and encouraging them to continue to create any way that they could, you know. Um, it, you know, that was the one important thing to me, was trying to stay in touch with people that I was working with on a regular basis, doing Zooms with friends just to talk and get through. It was rough because there was even a few booking agents that would communicate with, and we were like, "Hey, man, uh, if there's not a vaccine or we can't turn this around. I'm thinking about going to get another job." And even I was going, the post office is literally across the street from my house. I'm ready to go walk over there and apply and then go to work at an Amazon warehouse till the time comes. And was going like, when it was still unknown. Uh, and I started rebooking tours at the tail end of 2021, and it was scary. I was worried. And there were certain areas, like a lot of my bands that were like, we want to go on tour. Don't send us to the South or Florida. We don't want to go to Florida because it's rant. We would be careful. And I can remember like telling my bands, if you want to opt out of this tour, go ahead. Like, I don't want to make you. And they were like, we want to try and do this. We see other bands going out, our friends, are going out. It was, I, it was a scary time, but we got through it.
Were you able to keep Crawlspace together, like the team together, or did you have to lay people off?
No, we kept everything together. The main thing was communicating with each other, and we would do Zooms and just talk. And then, hey, and we would try to plan it like, maybe in 3 months we'll be able to start working. What are your bands telling you? We were continually talking. And I tried to not overestimate, like when it came to like certain like grants and things like that. I really was adamant about just taking what we needed, like only what we needed, and not and because I didn't want to end up overestimating or end up owing back, too much. So, but small business loans and stuff like that were done too with the SBA. Got through it and learned a lot. More than anything, what I got out of the pandemic was kind of learning to like focus on inner peace and learning to be okay with situations that were beyond my control. Because I'm like, you know what? If a band of mine breaks down in the middle of nowhere and they're calling me at 2 a.m. going, our van just, broke down, there's a good chance I can help them through that crisis or something. But this is something I can't control. And someone like me, when you can't, is the most annoying thing. It's like having a Rubik's Cube and you just can't get it right, and you're like, I could do everything else and I can't do this. And the pandemic left all of us like in virtually no control. And I accepted that really quick, but I was like, I've got to learn to be okay with this and just live in the now. And so I took the time to kind of like come up with a recipe for functioning that I intended to carry it once the pandemic and things were lifting and we were going to be back. I was like, I want to implement a way of living and a way of working that will apply from here on out. It was really important to me, and I think it's helped.